Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eden Road podcast, where on this evening's show, we're going to be previewing the big game for Brentford, at least, against Chelsea down at the G-Tech on Saturday. Just before we get going, though, if you haven't already listened to our West Ham full-time show, go do so now. That episode is live across all platforms. And it was actually really fun to record. I know it's a bit all doom and gloom around Brentford at the moment, but it was a full house, lots of laughs, talked about the game, the refereeing decisions, where we are in terms of the relegation picture. So yeah, do go check that out before listening to this preview. Tonight, though, delighted to be joined by Nick from That Chelsea podcast. First of all, Nick, thanks so much for taking the time to come on, mate. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, man, not bad. It's been another eventful week following Chelsea Football Club, as it always tends to be. But happy to be on.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Before we get into the game and the preview and all we're going to talk about, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spotify channel, leave a rating as well, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Right, first of all, Nick, we kind of mentioned it off camera. I know it was last weekend and Chelsea fans must be a bit bored of talking about it. But I think we should just briefly touch on the League Cup final. Lots being made about Gary Neville's comments, whether they're fair and they're true. I was actually thinking after the game that the final will have given Poch a lot of positives with the fact that Chelsea had a lot of chances to win the game. I know it might be a bit difficult to look past that sort of in the first week of it happening, but just kind of immediate reaction to it, the fallout, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think it helps now, but it's a bit less raw. The time has passed since then. Look, in the immediate aftermath, the reality is, if you kind of looked about it, Chelsea fans would not have even been mentioning Maurizio Pochettino's name had that game been over and been done in the 90 minutes, because I don't think Chelsea fans could have any issue at all with Maurizio Pochettino for what occurred in the 90 minutes. I think Chelsea played all right. They, you know, had chances to score right at the end. I think the last 20 minutes is the first time we really got on top of Liverpool. They said, could have in regulation time, Liverpool could also have scored. It was one of those, but you kind of felt as the game went on, it would favour Chelsea and Chelsea would go on to win. It's just why what happened in extra time was so incredibly frustrating. Maurizio Pochettino has said that it was not a tactical approach to play like that. Which then asks more questions. He then says the players are tired. That then doesn't really make sense when Liverpool are depleted themselves, have played 3 days prior. Chelsea's had an 8-day break. So if they're tired, then does that lead to question about Maurizio Pochettino and his training methods, etc.? How the players that tired after an 8-day break? Just a lot of questions. If they were sort of the players were sort of self-consciously or subconsciously playing for penalties, why was Poch not able to get every action out of them and rouse them to go again, given that they've been so close to winning it in the 90? You just compare, the reaction Klopp got on the opposite touchline to his Liverpool players. So it was just one with leaving a lot of questions, and just given the way that Chelsea played next time, to lose in that manner was just incredibly frustrating. I think there are ways to lose football matches, and the way Chelsea ended up losing that Carabao Cup final on Sunday was certainly not one of them.
You mentioned Poch quite a lot there, and I can kind of got a reading on maybe where you are with him. But just before I get onto like Poch bigger picture, important to bounce back yesterday in what was on paper a tricky game against Leeds, high flyers in the Championship. There's also the added spice because it's Leeds, bit of a rivalry there. You'd imagine a loss at home last night would have ramped that pressure properly up. So I know it wasn't the best of performances, but definitely one where the performance doesn't really matter insofar as just get through to the next round and make sure you're still in with a chance of winning silverware. So it was a big result last night. How are you feeling after the game yesterday against Leeds?
Honestly, just relieved that I didn't have to watch another 30 minutes of it. It was not an enjoyable watch. I mean, Leeds outplayed us in the second half. They look like a Premiership team. We look like the Championship team. It's a bizarre thing with Chelsea in starting halves of football incredibly slowly. Last night was just about getting business done. Again, understandably, I'm kind of more willing to accept players being tired when they've had a short turnaround and a 3-day turnaround, and it was. Yeah, I think all of us kind of feared it was going to be like a tough game, especially given the manner of how Chelsea lost on Sunday. It's different to just losing a league game. That was losing a cup final, and how you get the players up for it. And look, it was a really bizarre game. I don't think Chelsea were very good, but all 3 goals they scored were really nice, well-worked goals. It was just moments of brilliance from Chelsea that sort of helped them get over the line. And it's one of those, said, it's cup football. It doesn't really matter how you get through, as long as you get through. And said Chelsea, it just gave life to Chelsea's season, because it would have been unthinkable for Chelsea to have lost yesterday and Chelsea's season effectively feel over in February. It would have been very grim. And Conor Gallagher, just saved our season last night at the death. And with Leicester in the next round of the cup as well, there's a good chance Chelsea will be back at Wembley. So yeah, last night it was not a great performance, really. Not many players probably stood out for Chelsea, but they got the result. Yeah, still a lot of questions to ask, particularly about what went on in that second half because that was really, really poor. But they got over the line, they got through to the cup, and said that's all that really matters. It's now turning attention to Brentford and Newcastle before that Leicester Cup tie.
Talk to me about Poch. Where are with you? Where are you with him? How would you assess his first season at Chelsea? And then I kind of got some wider questions around that afterwards. But where are you with Maurizio Pochettino?
Yeah, look, it's been an interesting season. Let me get out from the start. It's clearly been a lot better than last season. Even if Chelsea's league position does not really reflect a clear improvement on last season, Chelsea's performances in general have been a lot better than last season. Chelsea have been able to score goals more easily than last season. They still have struggled to score goals at points, but they have been better. They have been better at scoring goals this season. They have been better to watch in general than they were last season. With Poch, it's just a really we're kind of in a weird place where it almost feels that the cup competitions are kind of salvaging this season, really, the fact that we are Chelsea in 11th, but also just the nature of the Premier League table. It's so hard to really work out. It feels like Chelsea have been are still in a race for Europe, despite being 11th. We'll say we're only about 2 points off or 3 points off seventh place. So it is still tight, but it's yeah, I think the feeling with Poch is just quite indifferent, really. I think there's a lot of people who'd be happy for him to go at the end of the season, and I don't think there's necessarily people desperate for him to stay on Poch. And the life at Chelsea. I honestly don't think if you replace him, like things drastically improve at Chelsea. To be honest, I don't think right now at Chelsea Football Club any coach is set up to succeed. I think they're set up to fail more or less than their predecessor, just depending on how well they manage to deal with the situation that they have in front of them. But yeah, it's been an interesting season. The cups have kind of just given Poch some life and some just become at crucial points to sort of try and ease some of the pressure on him. It's been an interesting season, and I'm not sure we'll see Maurizio Pochettino in the dugout at Chelsea next season. I think a lot of it does depend on how Chelsea do in the FA Cup and if he's able to secure a form of European qualification for Chelsea. But as I said last night, despite going through, did not do anything to help sort of his doubters just due to the nature of the performance. But yeah, it's better than last season, but whether it will be anything long term, we still got to wait and see.
In terms of that next manager coming in and what they're going to inherit, if Poch were to go, you mentioned about how it's kind of you don't know if they're going to be any better or any worse just because of the wider picture at Chelsea in terms of the change in structure from the Abramovich days. Are Chelsea fans ready for what the next 5 years could look like? Because from an outside perspective, it's like Chelsea, the most successful club in the last decade in England, and the new owners have come in. They've brought all these young players. Is there a manager out there that's going to come in and provide the success that Chelsea fans are used to in the short turnarounds and the quick managerial merry-go-round that comes in? You win for trophy, the manager goes. You win a trophy, the manager goes. Are Chelsea fans ready for like a complete sort of upheaval in that if you stick with Pochettino, you're going with the process and the rebuild? But if you choose another manager, you don't know if you're going to get success straight away, and it's just going to be the same kind of thing. Do you see what I'm kind of trying to say?
Yeah, no, completely. I think Chelsea fans honestly are like willing to be patient. I mean, Chelsea fans, I think, were pretty patient with Graham Potter last season, all things considered. And as I said, I think the mood in terms of Pochettino is nowhere near as toxic as it got towards the end of Graham Potter. We're nowhere near. I don't think we're at that stage yet. We are in that unhealthy situation where it does almost feel that every game under Poch is sort of some referendum, one way or another. I think Chelsea fans are willing to be patient. I think the reason there's probably just frustration and a sense of apathy is because Chelsea have spent, £1 billion. Like that is a lot of money, and there's a question to how wisely that has been spent. I think we can, I think a lot of Chelsea fans can certainly get behind some of the signings that have been made in the likes of Cole Palmer, Malo Gusto, Nicholas Jackson is showing promise. I think Chelsea fans, quite happy. So I think it's just the strategy is just a bit. It would be nice bit of refinement. As said in the summer, there was we talked Chelsea won't sign anyone over the age of 24. Like no, I think it was quite naive to think that this Chelsea team really could do great things without much experience. Raheem Sterling is one of Chelsea's most senior players in this Chelsea team. Ben Chilwell is another, and he's injured quite a bit. Thiago Silva, the other most senior player, and he obviously can't speak English very well and is likely off the end of the season. There's not much experience in the Chelsea team, and I think there's just a sense of frustration that where Chelsea were when they took over and how far Chelsea, I guess, have regressed. I don't think any of us saw it going like this. I think a lot of us kind of knew that when this new ownership came in, and just due to the fact that at the time in that summer we were already losing Tony Rudiger, Andreas Christensen, I think that kind of been partly happened due to the sanctions placed on us at the time. And I think a lot of us kind of knew it was probably going to take a step back. I think it's just the way Chelsea have just fallen off so far that we kind of went from, we were a team that were kind of amongst Europe's elite, and now we're just desperate to clamber into any form of European football. And also just the fact that you just small things, I said, you kind of see just small things. But for example, ticket prices last night in the FA Cup, that's Leeds is £38 a ticket. Previous regime that's about £25-30. It's just really small price differences. Again, there's been massive price hikes in certain areas of the stadium, which basically means that there's less tickets available just due to the fact that people aren't willing to spend 120, 240 quid to watch a Premier League, game against certain opponents. There is frustration there. I think there is frustration as well, and the new ownership probably haven't helped themselves when they kind of spoke about how poorly Chelsea were run, by the old regime. And look, they were not necessarily entirely wrong, because Chelsea under the old regime, towards the end, were not brilliantly run. But when you kind of say those comments, you then kind of got to probably hit the ground running and essentially have something more to show than we currently stand two bottom half finishes 2 seasons in, and nothing really to show for it. So I think Chelsea fans are willing to be patient and willing to be settled, but obviously they kind of just want to see more than they've seen right now. As I said, what's so bizarre and frustrating about watching this Chelsea team is you see what that performance they put in at Aston Villa and that replay in the FA Cup, and no one's expecting Chelsea to go there and get a result and performance, and they put that in and they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then you look at them last night and they're getting outplayed by Championship side Leeds in the second half, and it's just been so inconsistent with Chelsea. And I think people are just kind of just tired, and I think it's just just a general sense of fatigue. But it's been 2 seasons that have just not been very enjoyable, and 2 seasons where have just been a mess. I think the owners will admit themselves that they majorly messed up and got last season wrong. I mean, going through 2 managers in a season and then getting Frank Lampard at interim was a nice attempt to try and get some of that love back from the fans, but that interim appointment turned out pretty disastrously as well. I think Chelsea fans are kind of ready to sort of I think Chelsea fans are willing and want to believe in a project, but also it's quite hard when you've not been used to a project. And when you hear then examples going, oh, we want to be like Arsenal, we want to be like Liverpool, etc. But then you also then see their actions probably aren't really matching what those 2 clubs necessarily did at the same time. So it's just a feeling of just frustration, tiredness, I guess. I said, I think Chelsea fans are willing, and to give them, deserve probably more credit than they get, just being called spoiled, entitled, etc. No, I think Chelsea fans are understanding of the situation and realizing it's not like it once was. But also, I think understandably they'd like a bit more, than they've got in these 2 seasons so far. And I think that's completely understandable, because right now, I don't think any Chelsea fan can confidently say when they next think Chelsea will be playing in the Champions League again.
No, you do make some good points. It's all about tempering those expectations, and they're different. They're different at Chelsea than they are to other clubs. And the last regime, the expectations were sky high. So it's I can see the frustration. And I want to ask you a question that someone asked me when I was doing a preview podcast the other week, and it's a really good one. I thought it was interesting. One game that sums Chelsea up this season at their best, and one game at their worst.
One game at their best, one game at their worst. I'm trying to think if there's a game that encapsulates both as well, because there probably might be a Chelsea game that encapsulates them both. Their best, I mean, I'd have to say their best was the Aston Villa Cup replay, but that was also, it feels like almost a one-off, because that was a level of performance I don't think Chelsea fans have seen since that sort of heroic defeat at the Bernabeu a couple of years ago under Thomas Tuchel. So in terms of, a performance that sums up Chelsea at worst, I could give you a numerous list of examples. There's been some clangers. Man United away, despite this 2-1 scoreline, is probably one of the worst. Liverpool at Anfield was poor. Newcastle, that second half capitulation was poor. Like, there's been, even the game against you earlier in the example was sort of, Chelsea controlling a game, not creating loads, but being in relative position of comfort and not being in too much danger, then all of a sudden finding themselves behind and looking clueless and devoid of ideas how to get back into it before succumbing. A game that sums up the best of Chelsea is, we'll say Aston Villa is the best of Chelsea, And then the worst, there's probably more examples than the best, which also kind of says a lot.
Yeah, really wasn't expecting the Aston Villa result. I have to say that came out of nowhere. I want to talk about some players. Moises Caicedo, from the outside looking in, I know he gets a lot of stick from pundits and stuff, but I actually do see Chelsea fans saying that he's kind of made this scapegoat from the mainstream media, and the Chelsea fans are watching week in, week out. Obviously, he hasn't maybe shown the £100 million that he's worth, but like, how can a player do that? I suppose maybe Declan Rice has shown that at Arsenal, but he's not been as bad as people say he's been. Would that be fair to say?
Oh no, absolutely. I 100% agree. I agree on that. As I said, it's basically going to be impossible for him to justify that price tag. And also, I think what probably helps the Declan Rice situation as well. His Arsenal team are actually doing well as well. Like,
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
in the Champions League. They're in a title race. Moises Caicedo plays for a team that are in 11th place. So regardless of how well he's playing, people can go Chelsea 11th place. He's been good. He has been, good. He started off slowly at Chelsea. I understand he didn't really have much for a preseason, had a bit of injury, etc. But in the last couple of months, he's been one of Chelsea's best players, without a doubt. I think one of the things that people just use as a stick to bash him, and they have a certain point to it. He does put in some pretty poor tackles and get some poor yellow cards. And those tackles that get, obviously, pick up the yellow cards, get highlighted, and sometimes very early in games, and it's just easy for people to then to just latch onto that for what they see. But no, he's been very good for Chelsea. He has certainly been, out of the midfield duo of him and Enzo Fernandez, I certainly think he's been the more impressive of the pair this season. And yeah, look, he's been good, and I think it is very easy just to understandably, like, Chelsea were, for the previous 20 or so years, kind of ruined a lot of people's fun, and it ruined a lot of people's good time. So right now, when they can use Chelsea as a punching bag, I think a lot of people are also using this as a time to cash in on that. But no, Moises Caicedo has been a very good signing for Chelsea. He said he's never going to justify that £100 million price tag unless he would stay here for 10 years and Chelsea, end up winning loads of stuff. But no, he's been certainly a good signing, and he's certainly been one of Chelsea's best players the last couple of months.
Would you say Enzo Fernandez, because you've signed both of them for basically 100 mil for both of them? Would you say that you want to see either of the two play with another midfield pairing? And as a follow up, would you kind of say that because you've paid so much money for both of them, are you kind of hamstrung by the price tag? Like, if Mauricio Pochettino doesn't play them, then it's going to look really bad. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, look, honestly, I think them as a duo is good. I think one of the issues Poch has had is actually positioning, like playing them in
Yeah.
great positions. Like, he bizarrely attempted points of the season playing like Enzo Fernandez as like a 10. Like, no, he is best sort of playing when him and when him and Moises Caicedo are close to each other. That is like when Chelsea have had the best performances out of him. No, those two as a duo, you know, are good. Obviously, you would probably like, just understandably, like some more, but those two are not the reason why Chelsea find themselves in 11th place. There's a lot of reasons why Chelsea find themselves in 11th place, but those two, are not a significant factor as why Chelsea are in 11th place. There's a lot of other just contributing factors to this team, but why they probably find themselves where they are. But no, those two have, been a good pairing. I think it probably, what doesn't help their case, and probably why they get some flack, is they've perhaps been outshined by Conor Gallagher this season. Sort of, the academy boy who plays up in front of them. That's probably, again, just something easy for people from the outside to latch onto. That, when Conor Gallagher is impressing, week in, week out nearly, and he's sort of won captain's armband at points, that he has been the more impressive, and he costs nothing, and those two cost over 200 million combined. That's, again, another easy thing to hit them with. But no, them two as a duo is obviously, I think, certainly the way forward for Chelsea, and I think they will be big players for Chelsea moving forward, without a doubt.
Talk to me a little bit about Conor Gallagher. You just mentioned him there. Obviously, he's captain Chelsea this season. He's always picked for England. He's been one of your best players this season, but maybe isn't mentioned sort of up there with the best English midfielders in this country. How impressed have you been with him this season? What does he need to add to his game to take him to the next level in terms of being mentioned with those names?
Oh, I mean, look, Conor Gallagher has certainly been, a nice surprise this season. I think last season he was not anywhere near as bad as a lot of maybe Chelsea fans thought made him out to be. Like, I thought he was fine. It was a different role for him, and this year he has certainly thrived under Mauricio Pochettino. In terms of what he needs to add to his game, I mean, he's adding it. In this last month, we've kind of seen him adding goals to
Mm-hmm.
his game. That was the one thing missing. I think I can't remember the stat, but he was in, like, out of all Europe's top 5 leagues, he was in the top for like speed, all these certain, like, all round stats, and it was basically just his lack of goals coming. Obviously, it would have been nice if he'd had some of that on show at Wembley on Sunday with a couple of chances that he missed. But like, it's obviously tough. In this country, there's a lot of talented midfielders, and Conor Gallagher is a very good player. and I do not think he's the level of those players. But that's not, that's just more a compliment of how good those other midfielders are. Would Conor Gallagher be starting at Manchester City or Liverpool? No, probably not. I mean, maybe Liverpool given their current injury crisis, and maybe some others, but he certainly would not be playing at a Manchester City. But because he's not that type of player. But he is a good player, and he's a maybe sure people go, well, he wouldn't go into past Chelsea side of past year, but none of this lot would have really. None of this lot really would have.
Obama?
He's Palmer is too early days. Palmer is too early days, but yeah, we do like Cole Palmer. That was one signing I was very very wrong on. But no, look, Connor's doing well. As I said, I think if he obviously just talking England, I imagine like if he keeps up, he'll go to the Euros. I imagine just given the strength and quality England have got, he would be a squad player. He's not going to displace Jude Bellingham in that England time any soon. He's not going to be replacing Phil Foden, etc. It's more a case of like, should he be getting those minutes ahead of someone like a Jordan Henderson, a Calvin Phillips. And yes, obviously he should, but we know what Gareth Southgate's like. But that's a separate conversation.
Separate
But no,
podcast.
he's doing very well for Chelsea. And look, if you're doing a Chelsea player of the season, it's it's probably maybe Cole Palmer's edged him out a little bit, but Conor Gallagher would certainly be in the running.
Talk to me about Cole Palmer. Last of the players that I want to rattle through. Obviously, he's had such an amazing season, and he's kind of the bright spark in that team. Even at Wembley, he was kind of the only one I felt when I was watching it that he wasn't kind of playing the occasion, to use the cliche, but he looked unfazed by the fact that it was a big final. Whereas maybe other players did. How good has he been this season? We all know how good he's been, but just like, did you expect when you signed this player from City for him to hit the levels that he's hit? Because I'm kind of looking at it now, and I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were kind of thinking, they were saying, do you think Pep Guardiola regrets selling Cole Palmer? And I'm probably thinking no, because City are just a different animal, and it's pure profit to them being an academy product. We can talk about that as well in terms of selling academy players, but again, that's a whole other podcast. But just Cole Palmer, how have you assessed him this season?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was not thrilled with his £40 million signing on deadline day, purely just because I think prior to that he barely played football. He probably played about 40 senior games of football in his career, and I was going, he's an under 21 international, and I was going, oh great, the last thing this Chelsea side needs is more players who haven't played a great amount of football. But what he had to him, he was coached under Pep, and he had a lot of time training with Pep and being in that environment, and he very quickly established himself in this Chelsea team as one of the key players to this team. He has been Chelsea's best attacking outlet this season. He has been, I think you kind of compare the numbers to all the sort of the young players around his age group in Europe, and he is certainly, up there as well. Yeah, a really nice signing, a signing I was very, very wrong about, and I'm very pleased to have been wrong about. He is best when he's deployed out on the right. Pochettino has had some bizarre, again, fascination with playing him as a false nine at points, which it just completely wastes him. Doesn't get the best out of him at all. Sometimes also plays a bit centrally, which again does not quite get the best out of him. But he is, going back to England conversation, he's absolutely 100% someone who should be, in that Euro squad for the summer. Again, whether or not how big a role he plays, just due to the quality England have in that side, is another matter. But no, he's been brilliant. He's been one of Chelsea's best players of the season, and he is, as the Chelsea fans sing, sign him up for 8 more years, because they are, in love with him. He's great, and I think there's always something really nice about just watching sort of a left footer as well. Like, I think there's just something about aesthetic as well. But no, he's very technically gifted. He is, great at penalties, which has been nice. And I think the beauty of Cole Palmer is there's moments in games where, periods in games where you just don't notice him and don't notice on pitch, and then all of a sudden he will just have that decisive action that can just win Chelsea a game. He obviously has had games where he's been profligate in front of goal, but a lot of the time he's quite an efficient footballer, which is also something really nice. Which is, efficiency is not necessarily something you'd associate with Chelsea players, but he is certainly one of those who's been efficient. He's been, without doubt, a brilliant signing, and certainly someone for this, while the situation and the overall current position of Chelsea Football Club is not great, he is certainly someone to build this team around and to put a lot of hopes on. Then he can hopefully be the person to lead this side and help this side achieve some good things in the future.
Well, obviously he's going to start on the weekend. In terms of that front four that Brentford are going to come up against, do you expect it to be the same as Leeds? With, I think Mudryk was in a kind of 10 role against Leeds, wasn't he?
Yeah. He plays centrally.
Yeah.
It's quite a tough one, because obviously Conor Gallagher was rested for that. Again, I'm trying to work on Mauricio Pochettino's team. Raheem Sterling was not great against Leeds, but he got an assist. He was not amazing against Liverpool, but he's one of those senior players. I think obviously Nicholas Jackson will start up top, and he's been, pretty good for Chelsea this season. 10 goals in all competitions. His first season, he was originally a winger and he'd only been playing sort of a striker role the last year or so. So he's doing well there. So I imagine Jackson up top. Palmer would be out on the right, I'd imagine. Like it depends what Poch decides. Does he go for Gallagher in the middle, sort of just behind, or does he go Mudryk there? Mudryk is obviously tended to be put out of the wing, and I think when he did go out to the wing yesterday, he was a bit less effective. Yeah, it's quite tough. I mean, you're looking at wing options, and they're not necessarily the most appealing. Noni Madueke, plays a key part in 2 goals yesterday, but you're still kind of watching that game, wondering, actually how good was he? So, yeah, in terms of that front four, I'd imagine it's maybe Sterling left wing. You've got sort of Gallagher in the 10, Palmer on the right, and Jackson up top. But as I said, I'd only be confident of calling sort of two, maybe 3 of those 4, and said it could be Sterling out left, it could be Mudryk on the left. Who knows?
Just let's talk about the game specifically. Just a couple of questions on it before we wrap up. I want to go back to the reverse fixture and maybe the previous games in which this Chelsea side have found it frustrating to play against Brentford. Why have Chelsea found it so difficult to play against Brentford in recent times? And with the view that it is going to be a very different game on Saturday, because we have insisted on playing a back 5 and I expect us to play a back 5 again. But in terms of that low block and how efficient we were at Stamford Bridge and how efficient we've been at Stamford Bridge, we are missing so many key players. The main one being Brian Mbeumo. We lose so much threat on the counter. So we might be able to soak up pressure from Chelsea in the ways that we did at the Bridge, but we're not going to be able to counter in the same way. And that's something that we've lost. But what is it about Brentford that has been frustrating for Chelsea the last few times we played you?
Well, I think what the good thing about this fixture is it is a Vegitex where we've actually done all right against you there. Obviously that 1-0 win in your first season, which was, I mean, Edouard Mendy had the game of his life, and then obviously the Carabao Cup quarter-final there before the pretty uneventful 0-0 last year, which I just remember more for Thomas Frank and Graham Potter, asking each other questions in the build-up more than anything else about the actual game. But well, I mean, I said I go back to that first game, the 4-1 win you had at Stamford Bridge. It was just such a bizarre game because I think it was 0-0 at half time. And then I feel like we probably, we probably had a lot of the ball, probably didn't do much with it. Tony Rudiger takes a pop shot, which he'd been attempting all season up to that point. Finally, one goes in, it's a stunner, and we're going, oh my God, okay, we'll kick on from here. And then, yeah, Chelsea collapsed and we ended up losing 4-1. That game was bizarre. The 2-0 last season is quite hard to read into because that was just Chelsea in a very bad period. A team with just no confidence that had basically just, all hope was lost. I think that might have been after we got knocked out by Real Madrid in the Champions League. So our season was officially basically over at that point. There was nothing to play for. But what I think was, not helped. I think, playing up against Brian Mbeumo has not helped him past. I think that game last season, I think he got a goal in the win. I think he might have got a goal in the 4-1 as well. And I remember it's like your pace on the counter against us in the past was quite deadly. I know you've had Johan Visser as well. I think he's done quite well against us. I actually don't really remember Ivan Toney necessarily doing too much against us in these games. It's more just been you hitting us sort of on the counter attack, really, and just. Yeah, I think the game of the Bridge was just typical because Chelsea are quite poor at, conceding set pieces and from crosses. And again, I think your opener of the Bridge was a cross to the back post where you headed home. So I guess you will still have that set piece threat, which is why we, certainly this Chelsea team have struggled. But again, it's just one of those teams. Brentford said you caused us, problems throughout. Said even that 1-0 win we had at your place, you should have really got a point at the very least in that game. So I said you're just, but I guess you're good defensively against us. You've tended to be good defensively against us in these games, and we've not really been able to create loads. And then Chelsea got frustrated. And then, as said, Chelsea just don't have the quality to really defend well enough and keep clean sheets. So you've eventually had your moment and punished us. It's been one of those just frustrating, predictable fixtures over the last few years. But it's gone from, when you first came up, you're going, okay, this should hopefully be a nice 3 points. But it's really proven not to be the case. So no, obviously, I think as I said, it mentions that it helps for you that you've got no Brian Mbeumo yesterday, who's certainly been a man to cause us problems. My just biggest fear is Neil Maupay because that man is a footballer who, I will be brutally honest, I do not rate particularly highly as a Premier League footballer. So the idea of the thought of conceding to him just flashes through my head. It just gives me nightmares because he would just be one of those insufferable players to concede against. And I just remember being very relieved when you got your consolation goal. He ended up squaring it to I think Mbeumo to make it 2-0. He wasn't the one who scored that day, but No, I think you without Mbuemo, the task for us gets a little bit easier. But then I think Ivan Toney's been in pretty decent form since coming back for you. It said it depends how good are Chelsea at dealing with set pieces. I think if Brentford get set pieces and we're able to put balls into the box, etc., you'll be able to cause Chelsea problems. Just look back at that Carabao Cup final. Virgil van Dijk has a disallowed goal, from a set piece, and the winner comes from a set piece. Chelsea's Achilles heel a lot of the point this season has been conceding goals from set pieces. So I think, again, I admittedly don't know who you've got available, but I look at that Brentford back line, Ben Mee, etc. I'd imagine you've got height in that team potentially to cause us some problems, maybe. But yeah, I'd say set pieces and maybe frustrating us. And if you can hit us on the counter attack, I said I'm not quite sure, who you necessarily got to hit us on the attack without Mbuemo, but I said this is still a pretty handy player to cause us some problems.
Yeah, I mean, we're missing Ben Mees. Looks like might be out for the season. Picked up an injury
Okay.
in the last game against West Ham. Ethan Pinnock is out to the next international. But we've got a ton of injuries. I don't want to get into the injuries, but you're right. You mentioned Brian Mbuemo, and thinking back on it, in every single game we've played against you, he has played a huge part. I'm pretty sure, apart from the 1-0 loss apart from the first season where we lost at home in the Carabao Cup and you beat us 1-0 at home. The games where we've played you and played well, he's been a thorn in your side in all of them. I'm thinking back to the 4-1. I think he squares it to Ericsson to make it 2-1. He scores against you this season, last season in the 2-0 away. So yeah, without him, it's going to be tough. But it's difficult to predict. We were kind of debating on our podcast whether Thomas Frank should set up in a 4 and match how Chelsea play, or this 5 at the back that we've adopted for the last what feels like the whole season. Can't remember the last time we played with a 4. And it's going to be genuine. I'm normally fairly confident just because of our Premier League record against Chelsea. I mean, it's not too bad, especially when we play you at Stamford Bridge. But this time we're in such a slump at the moment. We lost 12 of the last 15. If there was a time for Chelsea to get a long-awaited win against
Although,
Brentford in the Premier League,
if I remember correctly, when you beat us earlier in the season, you'd also had a pretty shaky start, a ropey start to the season. Then you came along and played us, and then went into a decent little bit of form. So, and I feel Chelsea are the team for sides. If they need a team to kickstart their season, we can certainly be that team for a lot of teams. We have done that, unfortunately, for quite a few teams, not just this season, over the past couple of seasons. So, in some ways, we are the ideal opponent in that respect.
how are you feeling ahead of it? How are you feeling? Last question.
I honestly don't know. I try to give up trying to make sense of this Chelsea team, because I thought that, I said I'm more confident of the fact that it's not Stamford Bridge, just given that your record there, you've won every single trip to Stamford Bridge since your return to the Premier League, and the G-Tech we haven't lost there yet, and I don't think we've conceded a goal there yet either. So it's in from that aspect, it'll be good. You will score on the weekend. We do not keep clean sheets, so you will score. You will score at least one. So then it's my question of, do Chelsea score one, maybe more than one, as to whether they win or potentially draw this game. We can't complain. It's not a bad team to play at this point in time. But also I'm aware that I'm just Brentford. You can cause you have intended to in your time in the Premier League cause some of the big six problems. Although I'm not necessarily sure how many problems you've necessarily caused with big six this season. All I can remember is probably drawing with Tottenham 2-2 on the opening day, but I can't remember. Obviously, just so you got beaten by Liverpool for one the other weekend. Lost to City. I mean, you took the lead against City, but their quality showed through, and then I guess you frustrated them at the Etihad for a period of time, and then I don't quite know what you did against Arsenal, and then United. United. That's one of those games. You
Don't
talking
remind
about jamming this Man United this season, that awful football team that just somehow win games of football. They're like us, but they just win games of they just manage to straight wins. So, look, I don't know. I do fear if we concede first. I think if you score the first goal, you've got a good chance of winning. It's just kind of one of those old cliches. Whoever scores first is in is in a good position to win that match. Because I imagine if we score first, there's probably a bit of nerves and tension around that ground for you. Because I think after this as well, you've got quite a brutal run of fixtures coming up as well.
Oh, mate, don't. The run of fixtures since February has been genuinely horrific, and it's
obviously
not
with
it's not getting
Everton's
any better.
10-point deduction getting reduced as well. You're kind of now just been slowly brought back into the relegation fight a little bit more as well. So
no, it's a big game for us. It's a very big game for us.
Absolutely. And I just wonder, due to the fact that Chelsea have played twice since you last. Oh no, you played. Sorry, you played Monday or Tuesday night, didn't you, at West Ham? So we just played a day or two later than you. But you can see the 4 goals at West Ham, which also maybe gives me some confidence, because that was a West Ham side that attack wasn't really firing. Like it's tough. If I was optimistic, I 2-1, but honestly I could see a draw. I could see a draw.
I'll
Maybe
take a draw.
I
I'll
draw.
take a draw every day.
Yeah, I'd say it wouldn't surprise me if it's a draw. I'll say optimistically Chelsea win 2-1 because we have a good record of a G-Tech. But again, I imagine this team will be quite tired. They played at Wembley. They played midweek, and Poch, does not necessarily, unlike Klopp, does not necessarily rotate his team, as much as said he does not. There were probably opportunities last night to maybe give some more moments to the academy kids, and he chose not to, and he decided after, saying that the players were tired on Sunday to then, give Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez another 90-minute shift yesterday. So no, that we will wait and see. But it's one of those games. Brentford are just one of those teams that are just unpredictable to really call against. As I said, if you were when we ran into you earlier on in the season, I think we were off the back of a couple of good wins against Fulham and Burnley, and we were going, okay, maybe we'll take the next step here and go on a run. And then you came to town, and you weren't in the best of form. You won, and we lost, and you were kind of back to square one again. So yeah, I'll say optimistically 2-1, but I don't really have much faith that will happen. I imagine it's a draw. Which doesn't do much for Chelsea's aspirations of qualifying for Europe through league position.
Yeah, I think it's nicely poised. I do think it's nicely poised. I'm not 100% confident. You're not 100% confident. I think a draw would be a safe bet, to be honest. But let's hope for a good game. Certainly, if Brentford score first, I don't think you should be worried because we've dropped 26 points from winning positions this season, which is a league high. So I think if we score first, don't worry. I think it's a game of who concedes less because genuinely we are leaking goals at the moment, and it sounds like you guys aren't the best defensively. So I think not a good day for defenders, but maybe a good day for the attackers.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. If anyone plays FPL, I imagine put Cole Palmer and Ivan Toney in your teams for this week. Probably that's a decent shout, people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'd be a good place to wrap up, Nick. I really appreciate that. The Eden Road podcast will be back next week, of course, to reflect on hopefully a win against Chelsea, we'll see, and also briefly look ahead to Arsenal away. Before we go, guys, remember to drop your comments below with your thoughts ahead of the Chelsea game. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. It's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Nick, that was a pleasure, mate, and yeah, good luck for Saturday.
Yeah, I will say good luck to you after Saturday, and hopefully, if you stay up, then we can do this a couple of times next season, maybe. So, yeah, no, look, I've got to say, Brentford have been a joy to have in the Premier League the last couple of seasons, and obviously watching them bloody noses some of the big six has been nice. So, yeah, got a lot of time for Thomas Frank as a coach. Obviously, hopefully he stays with you. And yeah, you say good luck for the rest of the season after Saturday. We need this badly on Saturday to try and get European football. So I don't wish you well for Saturday. Unfortunately, unlike you, you're too polite, you're too kind. I hope you lose badly on Saturday. But good luck after that. Hopefully,
Fair
we'll have
enough.
a couple of nice conversations next season.
I appreciate the honesty.